All right, we're back on the Galaxie today. What we're going to be talking about is starting this engine up. We're going to try to go through all the little idiosyncratic things that you might want to know about starting a big block 390 FE or any really engine. But since we're Ford stuff here, we'll concentrate on this one. Restoration of a classic Ford is a journey of discovery. Let Autocrafters help you with yours. We offer quality parts for Falcon, Fairlane, F-Series, Galaxie, Maverick, and Pinto. Contact us today. All right, the first thing I'm going to talk about is your plugs, because when you get a set of plugs for your car today, they are not set up for points. If your engine still has points like this big block 390 does, then you will need to make sure you re-gap your plugs. On a big block 390 FE, this is supposed to be a 0.35 gap. Now I've got a gapping tool here I'm going to talk about real quickly. I got this one from Advanced Auto Parts a few years ago. This one's actually pretty nice. It has a gapping tool on it so that you can go in and open and close the gap up fairly easy. It has a wire set up for you to gap your plugs anywhere from I believe a 25 all the way up to a 45 gap. On a point system, you're a 0.035, and on a electronic system, you're a 0.045. So that's your plug gap range. Electronic 45, points 35. This is also nice for gapping your points on an old points engine as well. I like this one because it's got, up in this range on it, it's got 10, I broke the 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Fords gap to 0.017, so this is the one you're going to want to use on a single point Ford distributor. If it's a dual point distributor, it's different. Don't really see the dual point distributors unless it's an aftermarket dual point distributor on the big block FEs usually. So this is the one you're going to want to use for gapping the points, and we'll get to that in just a second. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to gap out this plug and throw that bad boy in the hole here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Tight on a 45, so that's gapped to the correct 45 for electronic ignitions, but we want to go down to a 35 gap so it's nice and loose there. We're going to take our gapping tool, and I never get this right. I always have to go back in and redo the gap. I either don't do enough and then I go back and get mad and do too much. I think that's going to be too much. Okay, weirdly, I got that right. Okay, so that one's ready to go back in the hole. One of the things I've noticed about me, I don't know if this will happen to you, but I do much better when I'm throwing a plug down in a hole if I take my plug and put it on the extension. It's a lot easier for me to get that to start up. I don't know why. If I hand thread it in with my fingers, it never goes in there like I want it to. So I got the plugs in it, and now I'm going to go in and I will, these things are really gross down in those holes. I'm going to go in now and put my plug wires back on, but first I got to check the gap on my points. I'm going to try running this thing the way it is. I'm going to use the stock condenser that's in there. I'm even going to go ahead and use the original coil and plug or points. I'm going to see if that's going to work out okay. If it won't start, then we'll have to start going in and diagnosing electrical problems. All right, so what I'm going to talk about right now is what I've done in here to clean things up. I've cleaned up my starter solenoid. I've got to reattach my wires here. Always consult your wiring diagram to see where they go on the solenoid. Also, I've put in brand new cables. This is a 12-inch long cable for me to go to positive side, which I'm going to want out here in the wind so it's not close to contacting the radiator core support. This is, I believe, a 34-inch cable for the negative side, and then I have my starter cable redone and run all the way down there to the starter, and that is, I believe, a 36-inch cable. When I do the starter cables, what I'll do is I'll make sure I run the starter lead off of the starter facing toward the front so it's not going to have any problems with connecting with the exhaust manifolds on the vehicle. So at this point, I can stop talking about that and go ahead and show you what I'm talking about with the points. All right, so I've got my gapping tool. What I did is kind of a cheat. I went in and I pulled the distributor around till I got up on one of the cams, the upper lobe of the cam for the points, so that I'm centered up on this, and I checked it by seeing if it drops. As you can see, whoever set this car up before did pretty well. That's a 17 gap, and I'm pretty sure that's about right. So I know now that my gap on my points is okay, and I can put the cap back on it. And I'm going to probably put the distributor right about where they had it, which was right around here. I'll use my 1/2-inch wrench to tighten this up and get it ready to go. And then we're going to put the cap back on off camera because, you know, I'll put the firing order for a big block 390 right now, so you can see the firing order now for what you're supposed to be using for a big block 390. All right, so we're getting one step closer to starting. Now, please understand, a lot of guys have wondered why we don't do this in one video, and the reason is there have been things that I wanted to focus on between the here and there. Now, our starter was bad on this engine, and now today I found out that our starter solenoid was also bad. This one was trash, so I went in and grabbed one from the 64 Falcon, which I know starts and runs, and I've put it in place of this old one. So I'm going to do my typical and throw it over my shoulder because it's no good. All right, now one thing you might have a problem with on an old car like this when you buy it is you don't have a set of keys. If you don't have a set of keys, you should be able to run a lead wire from over here on positive on the battery to the ignition side of your starter solenoid, and that should allow the thing to get full ignition power and run if it's going to run. Now, I'm just going to test and make sure we've got everything hooked up. We still have everything hooked up, so we should be good to go. All right, now I have my unknown carburetor on here. This is the carburetor I got from a buddy of mine, and I'm not sure what it is, but it should be enough to give us an indication of whether this engine is going to run at all or not. And I've gone in already and adjusted the driver's side idle mixture screw. And what I do is I always start off with a baseline. If I don't know what this carburetor is all about, I'll go in and adjust the idle screw on this. And on a Holly, you take and turn it all the way into stop, which is right there. This one's only a 1/2 turn out. That's not right for a Holly typically. So you go 1/2, 1 1/2 turns for your start point for tuning up a Holly. I'm not even worried about tuning at this point. All I'm worried about is getting enough fuel down the throat of this carburetor to see if we can make this thing run. We don't have any water in this engine. I'm not worried about that right now yet either. This is strictly a will it start situation. You know, everybody does these videos, but nobody shows you all the crap you go through to get them started usually. You just get to see the, oh wow, I breezed through this and I breezed through that. There's been a couple of days because parts sometimes are hard to get. We have a solenoid on order. It's not here yet, so I pulled one off of a car. Anyway, enough of my complaining. I'm going to go in and use my electric pump that I've got hooked up. I'm showing you how that's routed right now. It's just a simple affair that we use to work with engines that I don't want to run through the fuel pump. It's going to run the fuel pump, so I'm going to have to go and put a clamp on that line in order to keep it from pulling whatever may be in the bottom of that godforsaken tank in the back of the car. We'll clamp that off, and then we'll be able to do a startup on this thing, hopefully. It does crank over. I'll give you proof of life. We do have crankage and hissage, which tells me I do get compression in a couple of the cylinders. I'm going to go plug that fuel line before it barfs crap all over the top of that clean carburetor. All right, it's the moment of truth. Rusty's crowing away. He's probably a little afraid, and I have to say I'm not that unafraid myself. I'm going to put my fuel pump in play. Let it throw some gas into the carburetor. We can fuel up. You can hear it going in. Filling the bowl. Got a little bit of a drippy drip, but I'm not that worried about all that. That should be enough. We'll put a little bit of gas down its throat. If it'll take it. Not hearing the squirters run. That's not good. I may not have enough fuel in it. I have to wait for the pump pitch to change. I'll check my float level. So we got fuel in the float. I'm going to pop it out here. Looks like we got an accelerator pump leak on this carburetor. Because it's leaking down at the front of the bowls. That could be us also overfilling as well. I'm going to try it and see what we get. I'm not hearing anything from the accelerator pump, which tells me that we may have a problem with this accelerator pump in this carburetor, because there should be fuel squirting down the bowl. So, in order to try to get it to start, I'm going to go grab some starter fluid and throw that down its throat and see if that does it. We'll put some goat juice down its throat. See if that does anything to it. All right, so yesterday we were working on this and I did not realize that my green lead that we talked about the day in the morning yesterday had gotten unhooked. So we had nothing coming from the ignition. As I said, I don't have a set of keys for this car. So yeah, awesome, good fun. So what I did in the interim on that, since I didn't think I had any kind of electricity running through the system, I figured maybe I would go in and do some checks. So I checked the coil. The coil ohmed out at 1.8 ohms. That's correct for one of those kind of coils. It's in good shape. I checked the condenser to make sure it was operational. It discharges like it's supposed to. There are a number of different videos you can go out to online to find out how to check a condenser and how to check a coil for operation. Go look those up online. All right, I'm going to go in and pour some goat juice down its throat. Don't know if that's going to do me any good or not. We'll see in a second. First attempt, number 2. So technically this would be our second attempt. I'm not hearing anything like it's striking, which kind of worries me a little bit. I'm going to play around with the distributor a little bit. All right, so I've pulled the points out because it looks like to me the points might be a little bit dirty. They're not striking in the center of the points, which tells me that's a problem. One thing you can do in a case like this when you're trying to just see if a car will run is get a piece of sandpaper. I've got a piece of, I believe, 320 here, and I'm just going to use this to run back and forth. You let it sit on the point faces. So I'm going to do this side first. I've already done it a little bit. It should be pretty good. Most of that dark stuff you're seeing there came off of the points face. I don't care if I take a lot off of here. I just want to make sure that my points are flat as well, that they're not striking wrong. Because what can happen on a set of points is this arm can kick up a little bit and you're striking on the back edge of the points. It'll cause the points to wear more. I'm not worried about that right now. And what I would probably do in a case like that is if the points face wasn't striking flat, I would go in and start mucking with the arm a little bit to get into a better strike position. I think we're okay on here though. I'm going to clean them up a little bit more and I'm going to put them back in and try starting this thing again. I got sparking between the coil and the coil wire here and here. No, I thought I had a coil crack, but there is a chip in the top of the coil right here. Coil could be damaged. All right, I've changed the coil out for the one off of the F100. I know that coil works because we drove the truck the other day. I think that coil may be too damaged. It may have some issues, and that's why it's not working. I'm going to try this another time, see what we get. That shows promise. Yes! So the coil's bad on this thing, so we have a start on the engine. I'm not going to do much more than that. It does run. It runs like crap, but I anticipate that. Bad carburetor. This is just a point, in fact, of what can really happen when you get one of these things like that. I'm I'll throw a little bit more fuel down the throat and see if we can get it to run again. May have a plug wire issue. All right, so we know that we now have a running 390. We don't know how well it's going to run. Now I'll go in and probably put new plug wires on it and do a few other things, put a carburetor on here that actually works. All right, so there you go. We finally got to start and run. Now this is just an initial start. The next thing, if you guys are interested in seeing me go in and start to see if we can actually tune this 390 to make it run decent, let me know in the comments below and we'll go ahead and start working on that video for down the road. It won't be immediately because I've got to source some parts for it, like a different coil, because I really can't leave that one on here because it's it's the coil for the truck. And I did notice something that I forgot about with this. The coil was reading 1.8 ohms. It should not be reading that high of an ohm reading. It should be down around 1.4, 1.5. The Pertronix coil that I put on here is a 1.5 coil, and you notice it fired right off. So I'm real happy about that. Another thing I'm happy about is Patreon. Please go out and support a Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me on Zoom. And what you're doing with that is you're actually helping guys like Andrew come in here and work with me on Saturdays. You have to pay a film crew to come in here and work. And I am actually teaching these guys how to operate their cameras, how to edit video, all that kind of stuff. So it's a teaching thing, but we pay the guys a little bit of money as well in order for them to feel like they're getting something out of doing this on a daily. Andrew is now part-time thanks to our Patreon supporters. That money that he gets strictly comes from our Patreon group. So when you're putting the money in there, you're not just throwing money into my pocket. The money is actually going out to other people. I'm not seeing a dime of it. Andrew's really happy. We've been doing pretty well with that lately. But try to check it out and join up with us. It's a good plan. It's a good thing that helps people out, and that's what we really want to do. If we've helped you out with any of this tech stuff in any way, shape, or form, how much is that worth to you? Yes, I'm starting to sound like a PBS special, waiting for that phone to ring. Also subscribe to the channel. We're marching toward 100,000 subscribers. If YouTube doesn't call out 10,000 people, we're right there at it. We're very, very close. I'd like to see that happen sometimes really, really soon. That would be great. The only thing I don't like about it is I have all these people contacting us saying, hey, because you're bigger now, we want to have a thing going with you. Most of them can't spell in their emails. Hot tip for you, if you're going to try to get me to work with you, spell correctly in your emails. I'm not saying I can do it, but it makes me a little suspicious of it when you don't. So be kind to each other, love each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. Really, honestly, with all we've been through, I did not think this thing would start at all, ever. Because it was just not cooperating. And it all ended up being the coil. When I saw a little spark that one of my camera guys noticed, oh, by the way, I have to bring this up. Our young, almost ready to be on film camera guy, because he's just a little too young for YouTube to let me put him on the screen, he actually said that he got hit with Galaxie dust. Was it Galaxie dust? Yes, Galaxie dust. And I was thinking space. And in actual fact, he was talking about all the crap that came out of the exhaust system on the Galaxie, hitting him in the face in the wind. You saw the video, you know what he's talking about. Guys, have a great week. Happy boy, I'm a really happy boy.